Mets baseball on Locked Up Sports starts now.
Well, what a difference 2 days makes. The Mets win their second straight in Atlanta, and 2 days ago we were talking about possibly this team not making the playoffs. Everybody down on the team, the offense not going good, the pitching not going, the bullpen in the dumpster, and now 2 days, 6 home runs last night, 32 hits in the 2 days, and just like that, the Mets are now full of aspirations and playoff aspirations, and they pick up 2.5 games on the Cincinnati Reds. They lead them by 2.5 games, still trail Philadelphia by 6 as the Phillies won. But listen, this offense is now humming. It is on full blast. This is what we would like to have seen most of this season, but didn't. And now it's all clicking. The whole thing's going great. Lindor, red hot. He only went 1 for 4. He wasn't the story tonight. The story was the Mets and their 6 home runs, and it was 2 from Vientos, who's now just red hot. Vientos is in there every day. He's earned his job. McNeil with 2 home runs. Mets go back-to-back twice in the game. Alonso added 1, and Marte added 1. He also added a throw out at home plate. And listen, the Mets are just clicking on all cylinders. Now it's only 2 days, so we don't want to get too crazy with it. We don't want to be like, okay, now this team is back. Let's see it now against the Phillies starting on Monday. They have to win tomorrow, though. Tomorrow's a big game. And we got some news coming up about Jonah Tong and about Sprout. And give them all credit. Clay Holmes was great last night. He is now, the Mets have finally broken the streak, right? Finally, they have a guy who went into the 7th inning, and his name is Clay Holmes. And it's not Peterson. Because it was Peterson and only Peterson for about 5 or 6 months. Finally, Clay Holmes, he just made it into the 7th, 6 in the 3rd, 2 runs on 3 hits, 2 walks and 4 strikeouts. Just a brilliant job, and my apologies to Clay Holmes because I didn't think he had it. I didn't think he had 6 innings in him. That arm is kind of, it hit a wall, like we said. Everybody knew it. He's pitched 1 million innings more than he's ever pitched before in his life. It looked like he was tired. He went out there tonight and he toughed out 6 1/3 innings, and a good 6 1/3 innings. The Braves pitching is obviously a disaster, right? They've given up now 32 hits. They gave up 6 home runs last night to the Mets, and they're not a good team. That's what it is. And this is what you're supposed to do if you're a playoff team. 2 bad teams is beat up on them and beat up on their pitching. And the Mets have done that. Now, I want to see it on Monday. I'm not all in. The Mets seem to be all in now because Mike Puma is reporting, Mike Puma of the Daily News is reporting that the Mets are now talking about Jonah Tong and bringing him up maybe before Sprout. I don't know if it's going to be before Sprout or if it's going to be, after Sprout. But Tong went out there in Syracuse last night and pitched 6 shutout innings. And he's been dominating the AAA and he dominated AA. Sprout has been dominating AAA for a long time now. The Mets are talking about maybe bringing both of these guys up. And that could change everything. You saw what McNeil did and how it infused energy into this team and how good they were and how good they've been since he's come up, how good they played for him both yesterday and the game at Citi Field. There is a factor when you bring these kids up. They infuse energy, youthfulness, and just that I don't care attitude. I'm going to go out there and do my job. And it just kind of spreads amongst the team. Now the offense coming alive here is huge, right? That's not something that has happened all year. Mets really have had spot games where they hit a bunch of home runs. They hit them in bunches. But these last 2 days and these last 2 weeks for 1 Vientos, for 2 Lindor, Soto, who had an 0 for 3 yesterday, but has been fantastic lately. And now if Alonso gets things going with him hitting a home run, he was 1 for 4. Lindor even got a hit. But the big names are Vientos, because this is what was missing the whole season. They got no output out of that third base position. Now they're getting it out of the DH and the third base position. Lindor has been hitting like 500 over the last 3 weeks. Just absurd numbers for Lindor. He's got his batting average up near 270. And when you get McNeil, who has had, I've been saying for like a couple weeks now, McNeil's had a sneaky good season. It's now not so sneaky. It's now very public because he's hitting the ball and he's hitting home runs and he's getting base hits. And I think the fact that he plays second base now every day, he goes to the ballpark, he knows where he's going to play, he knows where he's going to be in the lineup. But as we said, Mendoza likes to screw around with the top of the lineup, 1 through 5. He's constantly moving people in. He had, who do you have? He had Vientos in the cleanup spot last night. He had Alonso in front of him. He had McNeil behind him, now they're getting it from everywhere too. Yesterday with Senga with 2 hits. He was 0 for 4 last night, but he had 2 hits the day before. He had 3 RBIs. It's just been coming from everywhere. And then when you get Clay Holmes on top of it to throw you 6+ innings, which is something the Mets have just been dying to get from this rotation. They get it from Holmes last night. They moved 2.5 games ahead of the Reds as they get blown out in Arizona. The Reds are starting to fade a little bit, right? We knew the Reds weren't as good of a team as they were playing. They made up 10, 11 games on the Mets, which, credit to them for doing that. But the Mets kind of helped them by losing all those games. Mets have been bad for a long time. Now, I'm not ready to be as excited as maybe a lot of fans are and as excited as the front office is, apparently, because they're all in. If they're gonna bring up Jonah Tong here, who has spent maybe a week in AAA, he was in AA the whole season. Players don't go from AA to the big leagues. They usually will spend a half a season, a full season in AAA, much like McLean did, much like Sproat has done. Now I think Sproat's ready to come up. Sproat has dominated AAA. I think he's ready to come, and I think if they're going to talk about bringing Jonah Tong, they're going to bring both of them. They're not going to leave Sproat down there the way he's been dominating that league. He had another great performance last night, 2 nights ago. Last night, he had Jonah Tong. Like we said, Jonah Tong was 6 shutout innings. He's dominating in his 2 starts. It's only 2 starts, though. Is he ready for the big leagues? Is he ready to come into New York City in a pennant race in September? Big games every time you go out. Listen, they know better than we do. And if he's ready, then you could bring him up. But he better be ready, because it's a whole nother scenario up here in New York during a pennant race than it is in Syracuse towards the end of the season. It just is. And if he's ready and they think he's ready, then bring him up, and they're ready to go all in on this. Now, nothing's done yet, but you did lose Montas for the season. I don't know if they're going to bring one of them up and I might be tempted to put Jonah Tong in the bullpen and bring up Sproat. Sproat has spent more time in AAA. I know Tong is a special kid with the way he pitches, and he throws the ball hard, and he's got good movement. But if you're going to go into September in a pennant race, down, let's say 4-5 games to the Phillies, up 2 on the wild card, and then take that into October, into a playoff series, possibly against the Dodgers, because the Padres now last night won, and they have moved ahead of the Dodgers in first place. So are you going to go into a playoff series, a 3-game series, possibly in Dodger Stadium, with Jonah Tong, McLean, and Sproat, 3 kids who just 2 weeks ago were in the minor leagues? Well, that's really rolling the dice. But it's not a bad move, because the Mets kind of have to roll the dice. This all eyes now are going to be on McNeil and on Senga these next 2 starts. It's because these are crucial starts for them personally. I mean, McNeil's making $25 million. Senga's making, I think, $20 million. And they're going to pull these guys for 2, minor leaguers who are supposedly the future, high-end prospects, big-time pitchers, but for kids who really are just getting their feet wet in the major leagues. It's going to be very interesting to see. And these are big starts coming up, and they're going to be against the Phillies. It's McNeil and it's Senga. And they might be pitching for their jobs. Because the Mets now they are telling us by leaking that to Mike Puma about the Jonah Tong thing, and he's come up in conversations, and we're talking about bringing him up. The fact that has happened means that they're really thinking about it. And they're putting it out there because they want McNeil and they want Senga to know that you might be pitching for your job against the Phillies. And they need big performances. Like I said, I'm not going to get all wrapped up in the team's back. Now this is the Mets. This is what we thought because we've seen a larger sample size of, not great baseball. The bullpen's still an issue. Even last night, Diaz give up a run. I'm okay with that. No problem with that because Diaz hasn't pitched in forever. But you had Rogers again. Rogers came in, gave up another run. And he pitches every night. That's what we said. We said he's going to pitch every night. But he gives up a run every night. And you can't have that. Because the games against Phillies are going to be tougher than these games against the Braves. The Braves are a bad team. Braves are 13 games under 500. They're in fourth place. They're behind the Marlins. They have not had a good year. This is not a good team. Now, if they go and they blow out the Phillies twice and then Monday, Tuesday, and they hit 10 home runs, maybe I'll start to think a little differently. But right now, I'm still focused on the wild card. Phillies, you go get them this week. Prove me wrong this week. But it's a good start. And the big thing, I think, the biggest thing of it all, besides Lindor, who you know was going to come around because he's a Hall of Famer. But you don't expect 500 over a week or two, over 35 at bats. You don't expect the guy to hit 500. But Vientos in the DH spot really, really lightened it up. He was 3 for another 3 hits last night. He had a home run the night before. He's hitting home runs in bunches. He hit 2 last night to give them, and McNeil hit 2. And like I said, I've been telling you for a month or two that McNeil's been having a big time season, kind of under the radar because of, the spotlight on Soto and the spotlight on Vientos sucking and Lindor going up and down in and out of slumps. And Alonso with the record chase, everything. McNeil's kind of, quietly had a real good year. And now it's really coming to the forefront as you can't ignore it anymore because it's two home runs last night. He was 2 for 5. He is up, his batting average up to 291. No, I'm sorry, 261 for McNeil. So we'll see where it goes. I think tomorrow, later today, actually, I think later today is a big, big game for the Mets. You got to get this sweep. And I'm not somebody who sit there and it's hard to say, you got to get a sweep today. You got to sweep this team because the other teams are good too. The other teams are getting paid too. Braves might not be a good baseball team, but they're going to win, 70 games this year. So they beat somebody. It's tough to sweep teams, and it's even tougher on the road. But I think this is a big game. If you go into the Philly series at Citi Field on Monday night, and somehow the Phillies lose tomorrow, and you could be 5 games out, then you could talk about the division again. I think Arizona they beat up on Cincinnati today, 10-1. Cincinnati's fading a little bit. They had that long stretch where they made up about 10 and a half games on the Mets. Huge. But that takes a lot out of you. That takes a lot of work to make up those games. And they had some miracle wins. They had some great comebacks. Give them credit. They got Terry Francona as their manager. He's a great manager. Hall of Fame manager. But when you have to do that to get to this point, they were a half game behind the Mets 2 days ago. Now they're 2.5. I think you might see Cincinnati fade. And if Cincinnati fades, then the Mets could be comfortable in that third wild card. Then you could go for the Phillies. But right now, 6 out, still, they do play them a couple series, but they play the Reds too. And right now, I wouldn't go crazy about going after the Phillies in the division. You want to keep an eye on it, of course. It was a big comeback for Washington, scoring 2 in the ninth 2 days ago on Saturday night. That was big. Get the Mets to back within 6. Until you're under 5, you don't really want to be talking about it. But the big news, of course, after the game is the fact that the Mets are discussing Jonah Tong coming up. And, I mean, listen, that to me says that the Mets are thinking about the division, that they're thinking about possibly going into the playoffs with 3 kids in their starting rotation that have under a month or 2 months worth of major league experience. That's really rolling the dice. And I think if they're going to do it, it's not a bad move. Because Senga Mania, Holmes has been good. I told you Holmes has been good. He just ran into the wall. He gave you 3 or 4 good innings. Tonight, I was overly impressed that he went last night and pitched 6 1/3. When you asked, if you would have asked me who's the guy that's going to break this 6-inning curse that they got going on, which just Peterson, I wouldn't have guessed Holmes. I probably would have guessed Senga. But Senga's been bad. Senga's been bad his last 3 starts since coming off the injured list. Mania has been, he's had bad moments. He's had bad innings. I wouldn't say he's been bad. I'd say he's been below average. Subpar, definitely. If you're in a pennant race, you can't have pitchers going 3 innings and blow out your bullpen. And as far as the bullpen goes, Rogers, I might give a cool off on Rogers, right? Don't, let him sit for a couple games. He pitches almost every day. But Soto's been good. Another, 2/3 of an inning last night. He gave up a walk, a strikeout, and then he came out. But Rogers came in, let the run score. And Rogers pitches every night, and he lets runs in every night. Diaz, first time we saw Diaz, you had to put Diaz in because Diaz had to get some work. You can't have Diaz go in there on Monday, not having pitched in a week or week and a half. Diaz was all right. Listen, he gave up the run. Okay, not a big deal. That was like a warm-up spot for him. Anyway, Mets had a big lead, and they needed to get Diaz in there because he's going to pitch over the next 3 days on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Definitely. And I think you could use him, too, for maybe even 2 innings tomorrow. Because I think that this is a big game for the Mets on Sunday. I think Sunday, the later today, actually, I should say, it's later today. I'm recording this at night, but later today, it's a big game. You got to get a sweep. You got to go in and get a sweep. You have to do that because you would, bad enough to lose 2 out of 3 to the Mariners. Oh, I'm sorry, they won 2 out of 3 to the Mariners, but you can't lose 2 out of 3 to Washington. And because they did that, just think about 2 days ago, yeah, we feel good now. The Mets have pounded out a bunch of hits, a bunch of home runs, a bunch of runs against the Braves in the last 2 days. Put the brakes on. Because remember that just a couple days ago, this team had lost 16 of 21. The pitching was in shambles. The bullpen was in shambles. Lindor was hitting and Soto was hitting it, and that was it. Now you got Vientos red hot. Lindor red hot. Soto hitting well over the last couple weeks. McNeil, 2 home runs. This was the offense the Mets bought in the offseason. This was it. This is what we expected to see, to be able to out-hit the average pitching that they had. And if they're going to do what they're doing the last 2 days, then that's going to happen. But we got a big one here today, this afternoon. Peterson on the mound. Peterson's who you want on the mound here. Still, I mean, you could say, you want, you could sit there and say you want, McLean and everything, but, it is what it is. It's a big game tomorrow. And if they were later today, later today, just a big game against the Braves, the 3rd game, to get the sweep and keep the offense going. Because offense and hits and then stuff are contagious. And you could see last night, but also think, look at it with a little bit of a reserve that it's the Braves and the Braves stink. Right? So, listen, good to get well against the Braves. Sweep them tomorrow. Go into Philadelphia 5 or 6 games back. Still keeping an eye on the division, but okay with the wild card. The Reds might be fading a little bit, right? Maybe they've hit their high point with this hot streak that they were on, making up 10, 11 games. Maybe that burns a lot of energy. So now maybe they cool off a bit. Maybe the Mets could put a little distance between them and the Reds, and then you could go after the Phillies when you get within 4. But either way, fantastic 2 games. The big news, the Mets talking about bringing up Jonah Tong, which is out of left field. Never saw that coming. Huge news. They have McLean, Sproat. I don't see Tong jumping over Sproat to get up to the big leagues because he's only been in the AAA for 2 weeks. He just got promoted last week. That's a huge jump. Players don't do that. Now, if they think he's ready, bring him up here, right? Because you throw caution to the wind, you're dealing with a Senga that's no good, a Mania that's subpar, and you got Peterson. If you could have this rotation be Peterson, Sproat, McLean, Tong, and Holmes, That might be good. That would be and listen, if they can ever make a run with that, that would be amazing. Because that just doesn't happen. Kids don't just come up into the major leagues because it's a big jump. From AAA to the major leagues, big jump. Big difference. But the offense, if the offense is going like it's been going, then they could out-hit bad pitching in case they get a bad start. When you're hitting 6 home runs and getting 32 hits in 2 days, and you know that'll outwork any bad pitching you get. And they got good pitching last night. Clay Holmes gets the win. He's 11-6. He improves his ERA to 3.6. He gives up 2 runs, 6 1/3. The Mets finally break the barrier of 6 innings with someone not named Peterson. They hit 6 home runs, 2 by McNeil, 2 by Vientos, Marte, and Alonso. They get good pitching, and they beat the Braves 9-2 and go for the sweep on Sunday. And like I said, big game. Got to get the sweep. Got to go into this Phillies series. Hope they lose on Sunday to Nationals. Nationals are a bad team as well, but it happened. They scored 2 in the ninth to beat them the other night. They lost last night. Reds lose 10-1. So the Mets get help on 2 straight nights from Arizona, and they have a 2.5 game lead on the third wild card. And then we'll see what happens on Monday. Starting Monday, big series, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And what a difference 2 days makes, right? From this season's over, start looking ahead to next year. Who's going to get fired? 2 days later, they're bringing up a kid they're talking about bringing up a kid who was 2 weeks ago was in AA, just to fix this and make a push at a run in the playoffs. And if this team gets in, I told you they're dangerous. You don't want to play the Mets if they get in, because they are a dangerous team. They are much better than they played all season, and they can beat anybody. So we'll see how it goes. Mets win again, 9-2. That does it for me. I'm Bob Walters. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. Every little bit helps. Find us at our website, lockedupsports.net. You could get us on Twitter, all the social media, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, all of it. We're there. And if you want to get all the links, just go to lockedupsports.net/follow, and you'll have all the links there. So Mets win. They are now 2.5 games ahead of the Reds, 6 behind the Phillies. We'll see what happens. Big week coming up. I'm Bob Walters from the Brian Gunzel Studios. See ya.